Guys, welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. Today's episode is all about medical coding in the age of AI. If you're brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Blue. I'm a medical coder. Okay, guys. So, artificial intelligence. Literally, what does this mean? Artificial intelligence. You put it together, it is fake intelligence. So, artificial intelligence is growing. It is doing its learning thing. It is programmed and things like that. Here's the thing when it comes to health information, medical coding, medical billing and coding. The codes update every year. There's guideline changes. There's all of these things that happen every single year. The code set in its entirety for ICD-10-CM, your diagnosis codes, and CPT, your procedure codes, ICD-10 PCS, your inpatient procedure codes. It looks different every single year. Now, some of those changes may be subtle. Some of them may be big changes. Some of them may be some section overhauls, as we saw with E&M, the Evaluation and Management Codes, a few years ago, right? We saw a complete overhaul of how the levels are calculated and things like that. Because of this, artificial intelligence will always be a tool. Let me repeat that. Artificial intelligence, fake intelligence, will always be a tool. This means that if you are hearing, oh, well, artificial intelligence is going to take over, but it'll be a few years. Somebody actually commented that's what their teacher said. Now, I've deleted that comment because I don't want it to go back to anybody, but here's the thing. When I hear that from teachers, or when I hear that teachers are using artificial intelligence to come up with exercises for coding and things like that, it really upsets me because of the simple fact that you are allowing a programmed program to teach for you. Ergo, you are not teaching critical thinking. And to the instructor that said, oh, yes, it's going to take over, but it's going to be a few years. How much do you not understand this industry and what it all involves? Because there's good coders and then there's terrible coders. Just because somebody is certified, just because somebody has a degree, does not mean that they are competent. And when I hear that from an instructor, I'm going to be second guessing that program. Because really, why would you even say that? Because they have threatened us with artificial intelligence for years. But here's the other thing too, okay? Not only do you have artificial intelligence, fake intelligence being written, this program is written by software developers and programmers and things like that, who have no idea about what we do. No clue. They're just instructed to do certain things. They set up the algorithm, they do all of these things, and then that's it. They do their job. But they don't have the technical ability in coding to really understand what it all means. Not only that, providers have their own unique way of documenting because everybody learns differently. They learn under different instructors when they're in medical school. And some of them have good coders who have helped coach them along the way. Some have access to good CDIs, and some have had access to ignorance and ignorant coders and ignorant people who are trying to tell them, oh yeah, do this, do that. And sometimes these people that these doctors listen to are not even certified. They're just the office manager, and the office manager happened to overhear this, or they saw like a meme that's put out there and they think, oh yeah, that's the way we're supposed to do it. And that's why I tell you guys, don't be listening to these memes either. Don't be listening to these little infographics. I see so many of these infographics on LinkedIn, and it's disgusting how many errors I see. And I see people just sharing it like there's no tomorrow. And I'm just like, really? And they're new people. And I understand they're excited. But if you're sharing something and you have not fully vetted all of the information in that infographic, and then you're sharing that, that's perpetuating a problem, misinformation. And so then it gets back to these people who think they know about medical coding, who think they know about all of these things. And then guess what? That gets dispersed out there. It is the same thing with AI. So AI, somebody else commented with their whole chest, saying, oh, well, no, you're wrong. And AI learns. Okay, AI learns based on who is using it. So if you are using it and you don't really know about the industry, you don't really understand about coding because maybe you're a new coder, it's learning your habits. It doesn't have the wherewithal to have critical thinking like a human does. So again, because of that, there will always be errors. We will always have to double check because these healthcare facilities cannot rely 100% on AI. Why? Because it makes mistakes. And as I was saying, with these providers, and they're taught their different ways, and they're going to say things however they want to. Sometimes a provider will document the patient has a history of diabetes, CHF, hyperlipidemia. Well, the AI is seeing history of, which means it's past tense. So it's looking for old history codes instead of looking for the patient currently has that. Because sometimes a provider will document patient has a history of, meaning that the patient currently has it and it has not resolved. But again, AI doesn't understand that because it saw the word history. And I've talked about this other thing before where it said that the provider had documented fall. The electronic health record using AI is looking for an injury. Meanwhile, the provider is referring to the season of fall. So it's out there picking up all kinds of weird codes, and I'm having to sit here and look at it, and I'm like, has nothing to do with this. Literally nothing to do with it at all. But again, can you imagine if I was not there and this claim just was submitted, it would get rejected and it would get denied. Why? Because that has not, those codes, those injury codes have nothing to do with this particular encounter. So when these healthcare providers in these facilities, when they get denied claims, this delays the money that is coming in. When money gets delayed and they've done the work and they're trying to get paid for it, and it stretches from 30 days now to 60 days, now to 90 days, because the insurance is saying these codes are wrong. We're not going to pay this. Denied. So somebody has to look at it and go back through it and try to correct it and go back and change it. This is where having certified medical coders who are competent comes in handy, because then, okay, we can spot this before it even gets out the door. So then you're having to wait all this time for money. Meanwhile, the bills still have to get paid. The facility fees, to run the whole hospital, the light, the water, the food, the supplies, everything that has to be ordered still has to run regardless of whether that facility has money or not. They still have to be able to pay their bills. It's the same thing if the physician has their own practice or they're in a group practice. They still have to pay the bills regardless of what is happening with the billing side of the house. So that is why relying on 100% AI to do anything is foolish, it is ignorant, it is short-sighted. Because, we don't have to pay for a coder. Well, good luck with your AI hallucinations. The things that it sees but is not there. So if you hear somebody saying, it's going to take over it, or it's going to be really easy for you as a coder because the AI already does all of it. The AI does not have the intelligence to critical think like I do as a coder, like you do as a coder, like you do as a biller. It does not have the ability to decipher and read and comprehend what's actually happening, because that is what is required. When people say, it's this, it's going to be this, it's going to be that, there was a time before where it was all paper records. It was all paper records. Medical records were handwritten by doctors, and I'm sure you've heard of the stories where people would talk about that they couldn't read the doctor's handwriting, or they got really good at reading their doctor's handwriting and things like that. And then, of course, the electronic health record comes along. So we are just in an evolution, right? We are just in an evolution, because then you have these electronic health records. So now everything is typed. So now you have everything typed. It makes it so much easier and quicker to complete notes and to keep a good track record, especially if the provider is really good at documentation. It's really easy to do that. And then these records can transfer over easily depending on where these records are going. So that's what one of the beauty parts of the electronic health record is that, oh, I want to sneeze. Sorry, guys. The beauty part of having these electronic health records is that records are so easily to be transferred. But with that comes a downside as well, because now with the electronic health record, maybe sometimes these records get mixed up. Sometimes the wrong patient is documented on the wrong encounter, and so that can happen. There's administrative steps to get rid of that. But again, who is checking that? A human being is checking that, because the AI doesn't know. The AI doesn't understand that maybe if this is a 65-year-old patient and the provider is documenting the patient as a 6-year-old, and they're talking about a pediatric patient, is there any way that the AI is going to figure that out? No. It is going to say, okay, it's looking for diagnosis. It's looking for procedures. That's what it's doing. So that's why we have jobs. This is why it is critical for us as medical coders, health information professionals, medical billers, CDIs, to actually take the time and care about us learning, about teaching ourselves. When I get very simple questions, what book do you recommend for this? What book do you recommend for that? I feel like I have failed the people, because what do I say all the time? Is that you have to go out and you got to do your research. It is as simple as a Google search. That's where all of that algorithm and artificial intelligence, that's where it comes in handy. Because sometimes, like when you're Googling things, you'll start to see other books, and you can do your research that way, because trust me, it's always listening. Because anytime I mention anything about books, oh, trust me, my phone starts giving me all different kinds of recommendations on different books. And that's what you can do too. That's one of the helpful things about AI, is because it's that simple. There's a simple task that it can do. But to me, wouldn't it behoove me to continue to critical think that not every single thing that's presented in front of me is going to be gold or even good? Because when you look at some of these books and you look at some of these resources that AI will tell you about, you need to make sure and you need to confirm that it's actually there. The dangers of AI is that it's making people lazy, though. Honestly, there was that one, I'm sure you've heard of it though. There was an attorney that was using AI to quote some kind of case, and AI just completely made up a completely fake court reference. And can you imagine that being your lawyer? If you were really in a jam and your lawyer did that, because they say that, oh, they want to use that to help them, and this AI was hallucinating and came up with its own thing. That is the same thing with medical records. This is why I say that we will have jobs. We are not going anywhere. AI is a tool. It is not meant to take over. Oh, well, we're going to use it for auditing purposes, that we're going to become auditors. You may have heard that, right? Oh, AI is out there, and it's really picking up all of these codes that coders never noticed before, and it's on us to verify. So, and in turn, we audit the codes that are selected there. What are we still doing? We're still having to look at the record. We're still having to critical think, because there are times, even when it's saying it's abstracting or pulling out all of these diagnoses and procedures, that it's not even there, because again, it's hallucinating. And there's no way for them to calibrate that, because even if it's thinking that, oh, it's machine learning and all that kind of stuff, oh, it's what is being selected and things like that, it doesn't mean that it understands. That's the beauty of the human and the human eye and the human touch, is that we can have those things. We can look at it. We can use it to help us. But it's just like how the encoder, when the encoder came out and people were panicking about that. Well, now, great, now we don't have to use these big old books anymore. The thing about the encoder is if you don't know the pathway to select when you're answering the questions, because it'll give you questions to answer so that it can come up with the code that you're looking for. But if you don't answer the questions correctly, guess what happens? It gives you the wrong code. And you can't say, well, that's what it gave me, because you have to exercise critical thinking. There's one, and I wish I could remember what it was, but I'm an orthopedic and podiatry coder, so I use a lot of the M section codes. There was one condition that I was putting in that when I was answering through the decision tree, I guess I selected the wrong thing and it gave me an endocrine code. So I was like, okay, no, that's not where I should be. So I had to back up and look again. But if somebody is just taking the AI as, okay, that's what it's saying that it is, and I'm just going to go ahead and push that on through, that would have been a denial right there. So until we have, these artificial intelligence out here that are, critical thinking and doing all kinds of stuff, which we would really be in trouble then, wouldn't we? But it's not. It's just programmed. Okay? It's just programmed. That's all it is. We will have jobs. We are not going anywhere. And for you in the back, we are not going anywhere. If you have not been in this industry for over a decade, please have several seats. Because here's the thing, you need time in this industry before you start saying any projections about the future of this. We are not like medical transcriptionists, where medical transcriptionists knew ahead of time what was coming. Because once the software got so good that it could listen to voice and it could type out what you were saying, and it started to get better and better and more refined and things like that, transcriptionists knew they were on their way out. They knew it. There's still transcriptionists out there, but they knew that that was going to be a discontinued industry because of the advancements in technology. We are different. Our work requires critical thinking. Transcriptionists required detail, attention to detail, because they have to make sure that there's the correct spelling on these on these brand names and things like that. If they have a registered trademark and things like that, they had to make sure that that was included on there. They had to make sure that all those words were spelled correctly, and it was very difficult for like some of those programs in the beginning. But then as the time got better and better, then of course all of that gets better and better with time. But that is different from what we do, because what we do requires looking at documentation and seeing what is actually happening. Because sometimes some of these providers will document any way that they want to, and then when you look at it, they did absolutely nothing. There was absolutely no care rendered, and they're just stating whatever happened in that particular encounter. And then we have to query, or we have to code it as is, or do whatever the situation calls for. But that's not something that AI is capable of seeing. That is not something that AI is capable of managing. Okay? And it's the same thing with having to pick up these diagnoses and having to pick up these procedures and having to add these modifiers. There's only so much programming before we actually are looking at it and we can be the ones to decipher what is actually happening in that encounter or for that patient. So again, we are not going anywhere. If you are an instructor, I would strongly recommend that you do not use AI to create your lesson plans. I get sick. I feel sick when I hear instructors saying that. You are teaching based on, oh yeah, that sounds good. You can't come up with stuff on your own. On my Patreon channel, when I'm coming up with these scenarios, I'm thinking these things through. And I'm not sitting here using ChatGPT. I'm not sitting here using AI to generate these quizzes. I'm not. I'm actually sitting here typing it out and going through and doing this. Yes, I have transposed a answer a time or two, but it's usually when I'm trying to work on that at 2 o'clock in the morning. But I double check and triple check. but I'm a human just like everybody else. But for the most part, my stuff comes out clear. And I make sure that I have my sources on there to say, okay, this is where I got this from. Or this is where I found this answer at. So that's the thing that you guys have to learn. And for my instructors, it starts with you. These students are going to see you. They're going to see the example that you set. And if you set the example of cutting corners, using ChatGPT and AI, it's just such a waste of time. And if you're supposed to be a subject matter expert, you should do better than that. You should do better than that, than to rely on AI. It, again, to me, it just went. And then when students come to me and they say, oh, well, my teacher said AI is taking a really? Like, really? Why would you even say that? That's ridiculous, because then that tells me that you don't understand what we do as coders. Well, I've been teaching for 25 years and you've had that thought in your head the whole time? Really? I'm just saying. Because again, when I was coming up in school 17 years ago, because I've been a coder for 17 years, when I was coming up in school, they said the exact same thing. And they also said, oh yeah, that all the work is going to be sent overseas because it's cheaper. Okay, what happened with that? When you send work overseas to people who English is not their first language, this is not an insult. If you get insulted, that's on you. That is not on me. Okay? This is not to be an insult. This is to be the truth. There are some words in certain languages that do not translate from English to whatever the language is. Whether it is Spanish, whether it is Tagalog, whether it is any language that is out there, Tamil, any of them. There are certain words that do not translate. So while that person who's speaking a foreign language may be really good at speaking English or reading English, there's going to be some words that it's not going to make sense. So they're going to do the best they can. Well, then when people were sending the work overseas, because there will be greedy administrators in certain hospitals that think, oh, well, why do we have to pay these people here when we can send it overseas? Well, again, you have certain people that English is not their first language. They're going to see this and then they're going to translate it into something else different. And then we have errors. So then you get denials. When you get denials, your money gets delayed. When your money gets delayed, nobody is happy. So then they have to send the work back to English speakers. And when the English speakers go over it, then they have to resubmit it. And so in something that should have been paid within 30 days turns into 6 months. That's when work starts coming back. So again, all of these things where these people were speaking so certainly about, oh, well, yeah, it's going to be sent overseas. Well, the work came right back. It came right back. And it's the same thing that happened in the credit card industry too, right? So again, when you speak with a heavy accent, and sometimes it's hard for people to understand, especially you have somebody in the Midwest, calling overseas, and they don't quite understand because they're not so used to people with different accents speaking to them. And then guess what happened? People were complaining, the work had to come back. So you will see some credit card companies now that will say that you will speak with a US-based associate to help you. There are some credit card companies and certain companies out there, the service companies, that will put that in their advertisements. So again, people who speak so certainly don't always know. And it's not a reason to be scared when you hear stuff like this. When you hear like people making these statements and making these comments and things like that, oh, it's going to be this, it's going to be that. I would look at that person. What motivation do they have? What motivation do they have to make that kind of statement? And it goes back to, who are you listening to? Are you doing your own research? It's very important for people to learn to do their research and not to just believe whatever they hear. This career field, medical coding, health information, medical billing, will never be easy. It will never be easy. It does get more manageable as you progress in your career because you will start to learn more, but it will never be easy that a machine could do it. They need us to critical think. And this is why I always tell people, the more knowledge that you have, the better off you will be. The more that you will be able to have more opportunities, the more you are willing to not just be in one specialty, but try different specialties. And I don't mean getting like certified in different specialties, because no one looks for those specialty credentials. What they're looking for is the CCS, CCA, CCSP, or the CPC. Those are the four that credentials that medical, health information, medical coders, medical billers, that's what they're looking for. That's what they're looking for. So that's something that you need to keep in mind, that not all these things that you hear out there are going to be, oh, that's the end of it. Okay? So again, we are not going anywhere. Again, if you are going to be an instructor, you need to come up with these scenarios and things on your own. You need to cite official resources, not just, oh, put it in ChatGPT and see what it says, or put it in some other AI thing and see what it says and what it does. And oh yes, I'm going to double check and make sure. Oh, but I find a lot of errors. All that time you wasted doing that when you could have been doing it yourself and it come out a lot better. And please don't even get me started on the resumes generated by AI. It is just ridiculous. And to me, it's when I see people get so upset about, oh, well, I can't find a job because they used AI to write their resume, rather than listen when I'm saying, hey, there's tips on my channel that you can write this yourself. You guys need to write, and you need to read, and you don't need to rely on AI, because that's the danger of AI, is that it makes it so easy. That's why you will not see me on TikTok, because it's so short. That's contributing to the shortened attention span. What happens when you have people with a shortened attention span? They are more willing to accept what you are saying without critical thinking. I hope I got your attention now. Critical thinking is a vanishing art, and it doesn't need to be. We need to push back against that, and we need to build our critical thinking. Yes, we should embrace technology, but remember that it is a tool. It is not for us to, oh, well, I want just something to spark. No, you can think of things, prompts, or exercises. If you're an instructor, you can come up with that on your own and check and verify and stuff like that. You don't need to be generating it from AI, okay? Because that shows your students to cut corners. I would never do that. This is why I tell y'all don't want me to have my own school, because I would not do that. And I would not have I would not let you do any kind of tabbing, writing, highlighting in your books. You can't do that. Yes, I could. Yes, I could. You know why? Because you should learn from books properly, the way you should. People are moving away from it, and they shouldn't. Rail against that, guys. Don't let people take your attention span. Don't let them take your ability to be able to pick up a book and read it and learn from it. And don't rely on AI, because there's too many hallucinations out there that don't even make sense at all. And you don't want to be that person that is putting out information like that, or getting a reputation for putting out information generated by something you did on AI. I'm just saying. So with that said, I'm going to wrap this one up. That's my message for today. If this video helped you, please like, subscribe, and share. And I'll see you all next time. Bye.